think we're live.
We are live. Yay.
Hey, everybody.
We're in the same room.
Look at this.
Fancy.
I know. And we met for the first time this morning.
In person. We have done a
person.
lot of online meeting, but so you guys all get to be part of our new in-person friendship. So that's great.
Yeah, it's very fun. I do a lot of my work remotely. And you take, again, another plug, you take sessions remotely too.
Yeah,
So,
which is awesome for folks when you are not leaving your house for a lot of reasons.
Yes.
Also, I think I told you, but I am happy to have, for mamas with littles, you can bring babies who are not mobile to session with you if you feel like that's just what you need to do. It's always easier to focus without the baby, but sometimes we can't do it. We just can't leave them either because we don't have childcare, or we're just at a place where you're like, I can't leave my baby.
mm-hmm.
So just bring them with.
I remember that feeling.
Yeah.
Being like,
Yeah.
You could trust the people around you, but it's still like there's that magnetic
Right.
pull.
I'd go to the grocery store, and after like 20 minutes, I'm like, I gotta go home again. So
What if? Yeah, definitely. So we're going to start today's, our final of 6 episodes, and we're going to talk about a situational question we got along this way. People are watching these videos, which is very exciting for me. And we're going to start with that question that we got from a mom, Sandy, and then we are going to, number 2, invite you to ask any questions you have. We'll try to see. I think you might need to be looking at your phone or my computer, but I'm not seeing any comments or questions.
Oh, right.
So I think
Good
we
idea.
might need to figure that out. And then we're going to end with, how do we help friends or loved ones? So if you're around somebody that's just had a baby or going through that kind of transition, what kind of warning signs are we looking for, and what do we do if we feel like they need some help more than we are capable of handling as just a friend? So first question is from Sandy, and she says, how do I move my toddler to a big boy bed? And second of all, how can I sleep with one eye open? So she's speaking to the anxiety we have as our children get more and more independence. And it reminds me of something somebody told me when I was little, is that the moment that you birth your baby or adopt a baby or however the baby comes into your life or child, that they spend the rest of their life moving further away from you.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. Because like at first they need you to hold them, and then they start crawling and walking and rolling and running, and then suddenly they just check in for snacks.
Yep.
And then later they're only checking in for money.
Yeah.
And for the car keys. So like even this as a transition from crib to toddler bed is such a big leap of independence.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's more than just the sleep strategy. So I will start with sleep strategy and logistics around how to make this go as smooth as possible. And then Jen's going to hop in and talk about how we can handle it.
The one eye open.
The one eye open part. Okay. So when you're considering moving to a big boy bed or a big kid bed, first thing is wait as long as possible. So lots of reasons around this, but children, especially under 3, their impulse control, their boundaries, their communication is just less than after 3 years old. So if you can wait till they're 3, I highly recommend it. And there's lots of reasons why people want to transition. A lot of it is, I think it's time, and I've been told it's time, or I my mother-in-law looked at it funny because I have a 2-year-old still in a crib. Like, you are the parents, you're the leaders of your family. So I say transition when you want to transition. And if you can find any way to keep your child in there till 3 or older, you're going to have the use of verbal skills. You're going to have less impulse control issues. It's better safety, all sorts of things. So if your child, though, is starting to crawl over the rails, that's when a lot of times we think, oh, we have to do it. So here's some advice. First is drop the bottom out of your crib.
Yep.
So if you can lower it. In fact, you're supposed to lower it the first time when they start rolling. So not even before they can sit up, just because their head is so heavy that you want to keep lowering it. When they're standing up, you never want their head over the rail because that big head is so heavy. And if they get up a little bit, they'll
yeah.
You know, all of us have heard that sound, the plop plop, and like you wait for the scream and you're like, what? Why didn't they scream? We don't even want to get there. So we want to lower the bottom out of the bed if we can. Now, some safety concern here is you want to make sure your crib mattress is tall enough so that the bottom of the crib goes under it, because what we don't want is there to be a gap where a leg or an arm or something else can get like stuck in there. So let's say you have a 9-inch crib mattress, which we currently have, and your crib is only 6 inches off the ground. that math is gonna work out well. So there will not be a gap. If you have a question, send me an email and we can look at pictures together. You can talk to your pediatrician. But that's the first thing, is lower it all the way. Second is get a sleep sack. Even if your child's old enough to take them off themselves, I recommend putting the sleep sack on backwards. And then again, it's like a warm blanket for them, and it won't fall off in the middle of the night, and it keeps their legs from being able to swoop all the way over the edge.
It's like a pencil skirt. You can't really move your legs all the way, right?
It's exactly like a,
yeah.
It's the it's the Spanx.
Yeah, right.
Baby Spanx.
Yes.
But it's not. I mean, their legs are free flowing in there. And
Yeah.
if they're walking, you can get sleep sacks that have the holes cut out for the feet. They're really, really cute. They look like little feet sleeves. And so you've got this little A-frame sleep sack with 2 holes in it, and it's awesome. They go up to 3T. So you're fine. You're going to find it. But I recommend that, and then just waiting as long as possible to do it. When you do transition them, especially if they're after 3, but after 10 months, your child will be able to understand things that you say. They might not like it. They might have opinions about it.
Right.
And they might not be able to fully verbalize all their thoughts around it.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're older than 10 months and you're doing this transition, I recommend giving them 24 hours notice that it's happening.
Right.
Hey, tomorrow you're getting into big boy bed. Go over the rules about it. Then the next day, play with it. So have the teddy bear be in the big boy bed. Talk about the rules that you have in the family, that you're staying in the room, et cetera, et cetera. So go through that, and that's a way to help them understand the transition. Have them put you to bed in the big boy bed, and then have you get out and run through the house, and then have them bring you back. You know, whatever your rules are about the house. There's a lot about toddler rules and preschool rules about sleep, just so they are safe, and a lot of it is about boundary setting and just figuring out what your sleep rules are and being consistent. But anyways, that play and that warning is super, super helpful. But anyway, at that point, you really want to baby-proof the whole room and baby-proof the area upstairs that they could have access to.
All of them.
All of them.
Yeah.
So you can have, like, if you have a Dutch door or something, you can always shut and lock the door at night, and they won't be able to get out. I know some people will, like, baby gate the end of the hall, so even if they got out of their big boy bed in their room and then got out somehow, they're still baby gated upstairs next to mom and dad, so it can't get too wild.
Right.
In our house, we have a 3.5 and a 6-year-old. So the baby proofing we have is in their own rooms, but I'm such a light sleeper thanks to this industry that I'm in.
Yes.
That I can actually hear when their door's open. And you could always put a bell on them or something so that you know if they're out and running around. If you're having problems with that, let me know. We'll practice keeping them in their rooms. But just for safety's sake, we have one of those hotel chains on the front door and every external door, so that if my 3-year-old got a wild hair and wanted to go run out into the street, she'll be, protected by that hotel chain. So it's not going to protect against like home invasions, but it would at least slow her from doing anything dangerous. So you just want to kind of think through that. And to me, once you know she's safe in her room, they understand the sleep rules, they're safe in the house, then it's all about riding that transition. So what do we do to feel okay about knowing things are different? There's a lot more independence. They're safe, but we have all those worry and concerns. So what's your advice about
the sleeping with one eye open part?
Yes.
So first is, like, don't do this alone. You might be the primary person who's going to be doing the training. You might be the person who's going to do the playing in the bed and role playing and child proofing, all that stuff. But if you cannot make big decisions about your kid in a vacuum, it can really help, because we start to the way that being a parent lights up our brain. It's confusing, and we don't always know it's totally true. So if you have someone like Sarah, or your partner, or your mother-in-law, or your mother, or a good friend who you're like, I think I'm going to do this, and they're like, yeah. So it can be really helpful, because then we're like, okay, this isn't just me. Like, I didn't make up that he needs to, like, it's time to do this, and I want to do this, and the way that I'm doing it is like a smart, good way.
Yes.
So Sarah and I were also talking about some like social media, if you can find like mom groups and stuff like that.
Yes.
Caveat, sometimes you get advice you didn't want or you don't agree with, so there's that. But by and large, first of all, don't be in it alone. So when it's 2:00 in the morning, you're like, I want to go get him out of the bed, like I don't know what to do. You can think, okay, like, I know that fundamentally the facts are that this is a good decision. Like, it's truth. Like, that's like, just rationally, this is a good decision.
Mm-hmm.
So then I know that everything else that's happening in my body and what I'm thinking right now, and I'm like, or whatever it is, you're like, I don't know. Or then you can say, okay, that's my brain trying to be a very good mama or dada or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But our brains get, especially in the middle of the night or when we're really tired, their idea of taking care of us in a situation is not very evolved. So if we know that the idea is good and we didn't make it ourselves, we made it with Sarah, or we've made it with, whoever else we know is like, I know this person said this is a good idea and I feel like it's a good idea. Then at 2 a.m., what we're actually dealing with now is our own anxiety. We're dealing with our nervous system kind of flaring up.
Mm-hmm.
And then that we know that that's all we're dealing with, and we're not trying to figure out if we made a good decision or not.
Right.
Does
so
that make sense?
If we made the decision with our frontal cortex,
Right.
we can even like remember that as part of a mantra. Like, we have decided to make this transition.
Right.
We've thought through all of this. We have a
Yes.
plan. We are preparing. We gave them 24 hours, all those things. We've got everything is safe so that, and you kind of know that on paper. And then in
Right.
the middle of the night, you don't let is the cougar going to get me in the middle of the night brain to change your mind.
Right. So an example is like when I started doing sleep training, having my kiddo, he was already kind of in his crib, but to like when he started sleeping the whole night, like I was like, he didn't wake up. I don't know if everything's okay. Like I wanted to go in and then like touch him and like number one, baby sleeping, don't touch the baby.
Don't wake the baby.
So I mean, sometimes I would look at the monitor like this close to see if I could tell if he was breathing.
Yes.
And I will tell you a couple times I did go in.
Totally.
Very
Yes.
ninja-like. But what I would keep saying to myself is, I believe that he can do this.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that this is good for him. I believe this is good for me. I believe this is good for our family.
Totally.
And so if you can say, I believe, your list of, I believe this is the right thing, or the most right thing we can come up with, right? A lot of times as parents, we don't have the right thing.
Right.
We're like, given the constellation of our lives and my child, this is the most right thing.
Mm-hmm.
I believe this is right. I believe they're okay. I believe I'm okay. Then we could just say, then you're just dealing with your anxiety. And so first of all, that one eye open, just knowing, not freaking out about it, just have one eye open. Just you're probably not going to sleep great the first few nights.
Yeah, you probably
You're
won't.
probably going to be getting up and doing this great developmental work with your kid about like what happens in our family, how do we learn new things?
Mm-hmm.
What happens when we are confused about them or upset? And just what Sarah's saying is like, we get up and we take you back to your bed, and there's nobody's having a tantrum, no adults are having tantrums or shame or anything. We're just like, oh, it's time to go back to your bed.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they're having a hard time, just acknowledge like, it's a hard time. This is awesome, great parenting. And so that's one of the things, like when I was sleep shaming my kid or any of these things, saying, oh, even though this is hard, it's giving us both an opportunity to figure out how we do hard things together.
Exactly. It might be the first time as a family that you've dealt with boundary testing.
Right.
I know a lot of times, like families,
Yeah.
when I say that a lot of sleep issues after 12 months are boundary testing, they think that, your first assumption might be, wow, like Sarah's really tough. And I'm like, no, actually, there's been a lot of boundary testing, but you might not have labeled that. When your child is arching out of their car seat,
Yeah.
that's boundary testing.
Right.
When your child whines because he wants another cupcake,
Yeah.
that's boundary testing. And so we always, as parents, lovingly, with empathy, keep that boundary. Like, we're
Right.
not going to fly down I-25, which we have 36 between Boulder and Denver that I took to get here. We're not going to be like, oh, you know what, I don't want to make you upset. Like, you just walk around the car. Like, I'm sorry,
Right.
No, we're going to say, I love you enough to not put you in harm's way. And I hear you, you're upset, and this is new, and I'm going to show you how this works, and I'm going to explain this to you, but in the end, we're still going to do it. It's the same with a lot of these older child transitions with sleep. And there's a thing in sleep called the extinction burst, where there's going to be some protesting of like, I don't want to have to stay in my room now that I have all this freedom. And we are consistent for a couple nights, and they're gonna amp it. And then it bursts because they realize that like your word is true. And I think there's a misconception with sleep training where if a parent has a boundary that is good for the whole family, that there's some people, again, that will think, wow, that's really harsh and I could never like upset my baby. And it's like, actually with attachment, theory and wanting your child to have a lovingly, like positively permanent attached, like good, healthy attachment, it's your child is protesting and not saying, change your mind, love me, change your mind. They're saying, like, is your word good?
Can I trust you to do what you said you're going to do?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So the best thing we could do in that moment, let's say Sandy's child does end up running out a million times that first night and she lovingly brings him back to his big boy bed. That's such a win because you've instilled such trust. It was hard work as a parent, but it's so great because your word has just become gold to that child.
Yeah, and the developmentally, that's like a huge attachment piece, both with the primary caregiver, but also in the world, that I can trust that when my caregiver says that something's going to happen, they're going to do it. So that's like nice about the car seat or the bed. But then, like, when really big things come up, they can say, I can trust that my person's going to follow through for me
and handle it.
And handle it. I want to go quickly back before we finish here about you're sleeping with one eye open. When we become parents, all of our stuff from childhood comes back to haunt us or to help us. So if you're sleeping with one eye open or you're really freaking out about whatever thing, which is a lot of us, what we also want to look at is, like, did you feel like someone abandoned you? Right? So then you have this thing of, like, I had this weird memory when I was sleep training my kid of being in my crib, and I don't even know if it's real, and, like, I'm screaming and no one's coming.
Aww.
And so I had to work with that feeling myself. I actually worked with my therapist about it.
I'm sure.
But the point is like, we have our own stuff coming up that I would really recommend, of course, to work with it with a therapist, because sometimes it's slippery. Like, even if you have this memory and you know your house was reliable or it was unreliable or whatever, you made the memory when you were a little kid with a little kid brain and a little kid filter. Yeah. And so if you can go back to that time as an adult and start to look at it, it can help kind of clear it out for you.
Oh, so
and
true.
And that means you don't pass that sort of trauma feeling to your kiddo, because you cleared it, and so you don't have it to give.
Yeah.
So if you're in there like, my baby's all alone, or like, he's going to kill himself. I didn't mean it in that way. I mean, like, he's going to get himself hurt.
Yeah.
Just starting to look back, like, did I feel safe in my house? Did I feel like I could trust my parents to do what they said they were going to do? Did I feel like somebody was in control? Did I feel like there was space for me to grow and learn a new thing and make mistakes and to challenge people, and it wouldn't come back on me in a harsh way? So that's all in us, and it's wired in us in such a really little kid way that if we can bring it up with our adult brain, then we can actually use that as a resource in helping our kiddo, and also clear out the part that's messy from getting in the way with what we're doing with our kid.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
That's why I talked to somebody this morning at the gym. She's a new mom. And I was like, hey, do you have a therapist? Like, I'm all about, like, checking that.
Get yourself a therapist.
Yeah, I was like, definitely postpartum. And we laughed. We're like, actually, anybody in any transition who has a brain and a body that has relationships.
Right.
Like, we should all be in therapy. Because it really helps. I love what you said about that. When I was sleep training, what came up for me is hypervigilance. And that if I didn't, like, check on her constantly in a safe sleep space.
Yeah.
That if something bad happened, it would be because I wasn't vigilant enough.
Right. It would be my fault.
Yeah. And I had no idea it actually was connected to a childhood memory for me.
Yeah.
So, and it was being afraid of my house burning down and nobody else taking that fear seriously.
Right.
Which was amazing. And so now instead of ignoring that and letting it be part of my, like, dysfunction in my family, what I've done is I've done work about that. So now when I hear my daughters taking on responsibilities that are adult responsibilities, I can look at her and say, because there's things she's afraid of. For example, things getting flushed down the toilet. Oh. My 6-year-old is super afraid of it.
It goes away.
Because my 3-year-old flushed her favorite underwear and her favorite sleep dress down the toilet in one night.
You have good plumbing.
Yeah, it just went all the way. Yeah. So, of course, she's worried about it. But I had to have this moment with her to let her know how worried I am also about that and the steps I am taking to prevent that and how I will make it right if that ever happens, and that it is a big problem that the adults are handling for her and that she doesn't have to handle it.
Right.
You know, but I didn't have that perspective without my therapist. So.
Right.
Love it.
So the whole loops back is if you're in that space, well, first of all, if you already know that you're getting as much sleep as you can get, you're eating food, you're talking to other people, your life otherwise is normal, but you're having these, there's a transition, I'm having a big meltdown. Give yourself the credit and the gift of realizing yourself is responding exactly how it should, given the constellation of your past, and then maybe we could unpack that a little and decide which things we're going to bring forward and which things we're going to let go of.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And just trust yourself that you've made great decisions in the past. You've gotten to this point. You survived all your days up to this point, even with the anxiety you have. I keep checking down here just to see if we have any questions. Right. So if anybody has any questions about sleep or anxiety,
right,
or mental health or mental wellness, please pop it down here. But before we wrap up, what can we do if we are noticing, and I am a doula, so I see a lot of families postpartum. So what can doulas do? What can mother-in-laws do? What can families do? What can spouses do if they think that a loved one is dealing with a postpartum mood disorder?
Right.
What do we do?
So first of all, gentleness. I think anyone who has had a kid or has been a new parent can appreciate even the most loving advice can really feel just so attacking when you're really just gutting yourself to get through every day, and someone's well, it seems like you're really anxious. You're like, you know what? Right, you're dead. Seems like you're about to die. That's what it seems like. So one little things, so it depends on how worried we're at. Sarah gave me an example of someone who was hey, can you a spouse said, can you keep me safe, I'm worried I'm gonna hurt myself. That's high end, we're talking about now. If someone's in that position asking you to keep them safe so they can't hurt themselves, we're actually gonna say I will do that, and we want to not leave that person alone.
Yes.
So all the people that can come and check on and be around, so sending over whoever can just stay there and hang out. It could be people from church, it could be a neighbor, it could be just people just constantly coming in. Those people are not baby holders, unless that's the question. That's actually what Mama wants to do. I think Sarah and I talked, I don't know if it was in a video or on the phone, but people come over and they're I want to hold your baby. And you're I have to feed my baby. I don't actually need people to hold my baby. I need people to bring me food, to clean my house, to
play with
my
the
dog,
toddler,
to play with the toddler, to wipe the poo off the wall over there that I can't believe is there.
Run to Costco, please.
Right.
Yeah.
So people just dropping in to just do stuff, but those people also become an ear.
Yes.
Because you're there, you can become someone who can listen. So that's sort of higher end thing. One, if you're a good close friend with someone, you're going to say, oh my gosh, empathy, empathy, empathy. You're amazing. I can't believe you're not sleeping. This is so much, and it really sounds like you're in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Or this is so hard. This is so hard,
Yeah.
Do you want help?
Yes.
And if the person's sometimes people will say no, especially new parents, because they can't imagine what the help would be. They will burst
tears that will project straight at that
friend.
Cry. Where I'm I'm okay.
Yeah. So if the person is no, I'm good, you can be okay. So maybe you're going to check on them some more. If they're there's no way anybody can help me, which is where a lot of new parents are. I think Sarah might have seen this too. A lot of people don't get sleep training because they're they can't even get the next step to show up and make that call and try and do something different. If that's the place, first of all, I would really invite people to not be isolated.
Yeah.
So if this is your friend, you'd be be on social media.
This is where it's a positive
thing. You can't
thing.
leave your house, so you need a world that's not just baby puke and dirty diapers. You need a bigger world. So being on social media is brilliant. Maybe whatever, if you can't do one thing, then pick something. There's a lot of different kinds of social media. Even if you just get on Google and start looking for blogs, one of the things I did, I was struggling so bad when I was pregnant. I hated being pregnant. And all I saw, which Sarah did not have that experience, but it was totally my experience, and all I saw was I'm pregnant! Oh, look at these onesies! And I was this is horrible! Mm-hmm. And I Googled it, and I found 3 different blogs of women who were talking about how just awful and painful and upsetting it was to be pregnant.
Yeah.
And it just really helped me.
It's validating.
So right. So help them find blogs. There's Longest Shortest Time we were talking about, which is a podcast.
Love them.
I think they just finished, and they have like 6 seasons, so 6 years worth of podcasts, and it's still out there. It's on Apple and wherever else you find your podcasts. Looking for podcasts, looking for blogs, looking for social media stuff, so that you can be consuming stuff to normalize, helping your friend consume stuff to normalize their experience.
Yeah.
And then we're going to point them to things like postpartum doulas,
Absolutely.
therapists,
Absolutely.
mom groups,
even breastfeeding support groups. What I love about breastfeeding support groups is every hotel and hospital. Every hospital generally has a free weekly breastfeeding class. So even if you might be like me and you're triple feeding, so you've got the formula and the pump and like nothing's coming out and it's super hard, they support all kinds of feeding, and they're usually free, and usually the same people show up every week. So it becomes your little support group.
Yeah.
I love La Leche League for that, and that's free. MOPS is a great place once you feel like you can leave the house again. Like, it's usually free. Stroller Strides. I mean, depending on what you're interested in, there's usually a mom's group.
Right.
But I totally recommend what you're saying about social media. Just getting on Boulder Babies. I love them. There's a bunch of great groups for Denver. Cord Mamas is another great one where people are just uplifting and supportive, and you just want somebody else to be like, oh, I've been there. Like, there are some people that will post, my hardest thing of today is I can't figure out which kind of onesie to buy. Well, if that is a really difficult thing for that mom, and we can all be like, hey, this is what I found, this is what I can find, and it helps her, like, we've done our job as the community. And if that's her hardest thing today, let's be there for her. And it's just nice to see that everybody else, we don't have it figured it out.
Right.
We don't have it figured out.
Yeah. So don't go it alone.
Yes.
So helping them not go it alone, having places when they're stuck at home and nobody can be there with them so that they can be connected to other people. I would say meant, like, I just keep thinking we weren't meant to do this alone, like just to be you and a baby. Like, that sounds like a setup. So if you can't get other people in your house, or you're just like, I can't get out of the house, like all of the things and stuff, like it's not happening, just go. The virtual world is amazing. Validating the person, and then giving them the help they ask for. If you want help, can I give you help? If they're like, no, I don't help, you'd be like, I'll clean your toilet. I'll like start suggesting the kind of help you think might help.
Suggesting is so helpful.
Specifically because they're going to think like, oh, well, you just want to come over and hold my baby, or you're just like, well, bring me one meal. Like, that's not going to make any difference in the long run. So let them know the level of help you're willing to give, or the level of help you're going to help them find. One thing that can be helpful is getting a house cleaner for the people who can pay for that. House cleaners, getting meal services. There's all different kinds of meal services.
Send somebody 6 weeks of HelloFresh.
Right.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
There's something actually more pre-made.
Right. So there's also several, if you just Google them, around the Denver area where they bring homemade meals.
Yes,
like a lady made them in her kitchen, and they bring them to your front door. I've had one, ENNINE, which is like pretty good, and the price was really reasonable. But there's a bunch of them. So you can just have like real food, and they also have a lot of dietary preferences if you have those. Trying to take those little things off. Probably the biggest thing is sleep.
Totally.
So
it really
if the person is collapsing on themselves, there's a good chance they're not getting sleep.
Yes. And in that first episode, we talked about the 5-hour strategy. So if you don't know what we're talking about with that, please go back to the first episode of this series together. We talked about how to get 5 hours consistent. And we want that as like a baseline, and there's lots of ways to do it. The other thing is, if you're close enough with the person and they want you to hold their baby, sometimes, like for me, I wanted to be, again, I was vigilant, so I wanted to be next to the baby or supervising the baby's nap. So like, I wasn't napping when she was napping. So you might have a friend that wants you to supervise your baby's nap so that you can fully fall asleep.
Right.
That would be amazing,
Yeah, right.
It's amazing. Postpartum doulas, night nannies, all of them are great. Remember that Allo Tribe is local to both Denver and Boulder, and they will respond with a 2-hour window, 24/7, both for your birth, if you don't have a doula lined up, and postpartum. So if you've just hit a wall and you didn't, your mom isn't coming to town, or you don't have a mom, and you just need somebody now, this is where you throw a little money at the problem, and you make it happen. It'll be the best decision. Anybody that's had a night nanny for one night will tell you it's the best decision of their life. And then when you're ready, I can help strategize what to do for the future and for the long term.
Yeah.
But a lot of times there's some acute help that needs to be done.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest things. If somebody's really not safe, just like always, like if you're like, I am not sure this woman, like we can get to places always, and certainly with new babies, where we're like, I hate being a parent, I hate my life. So if you're like actually worried if someone's safe, just call the police.
Yeah.
And they'll come and they're not going to like take the baby away or any of those things. They'll come and do an assessment. And if they're like, yeah, this is probably a good idea, we'll take you in for like a bigger psych assessment. You can like bring your baby to the hospital, like all those things. But if we're really worried, like someone's not going to be okay, then we just get outside people to do an intervention, and then they can refer you to therapy.
For sure.
Other option is also just Google therapist and get into whatever therapist can see you as soon as possible. They may not be your forever therapist, but they should be at least be able to get you some good, like, keep you above water stuff until you find your perfect fit therapist. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Great points. And below, we're going to put both of our contact information if you need any resources or referrals for something specific. And I don't actually see any specific questions except for, will this be available later? Yes, it will be.
Yes.
But, reach out to us. We both want to send people in the right direction, whether it's with us or with other providers. And that's the whole reason we're doing the series.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Yeah.
Any final words? I'm just glad we did this.
I am too.
This is a
Thank
pipe
you.
dream a
This
while
is great.
ago.
I guess my biggest thing is I want people to feel like whatever you're going through, there's like another way forward.
Yeah.
And even if you can't imagine what it's going to look like or how it could possibly happen, like I really can relate to that. Just being like, I can feel so stuck.
Yeah.
Just if there's any step that you can allow yourself to take to go forward, like I'll make this one phone call or this one email, or I'll tell one person how horrible this is. Just follow the one step at a time, and eventually you'll be out of the woods. But it can be a pretty messy, weird time. So if you feel like, whoa, this is not what I signed up for, you're probably doing just the right thing, and it is just that hard.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love what my friend said when I was postpartum early. She said, don't universalize. I think I shared this on a different episode where basically I called her. I was like, she's not sleeping more than 25 minutes at a time. I don't know. Like, I was starting to like wonder if I shouldn't have had a baby. Like, it was so bad. And I was just like, nothing's going well. My relationships are going down the hill. I can't work. Like, it was just terrible. And she's like, I just want to encourage you that it will not always feel like this. And so if you're in a hard time, I know some people that are pregnant right now that hate being pregnant. They are so sick. I know some people that have, I have a friend with twins, and her preschooler is just having a really hard time with school and with the adjustment, and she's having a hard time. And there's different things. Mine is with my 6-year-old, we're working with things, and like all of us have our things, and just know that this thing will not be this painful forever, and it will get better. And there's people that want to help you, and just one foot in front of the other. The next right choice is all we can do. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you in our next series.
Yeah.
I just put that on the table.
Perfect.
Okay.
We'll see what that's going to be.
All right.
Take care.
Take care.